Yes, welcome to the Shelter FootyCast, where WA's best footy show and WA's best beer combined to bring you all the biggest footy news ahead of Gather Round. Yes, we have an absentee. He's in the City of Churches. Schoey out of the host seat. Skeet taking his place. And we replaced Schoey with a Sandover medalist. Of course, we're coming to you live from the BackChat Studios, shelterfootycast.com.au, socials at Shelter FootyCast, YouTube BackChat Shelter FootyCast playlist, and the FootyCast at backchatstudios.com.au. Is that enough for social media content? Enough, thank you very much. Pamela, welcome.
Always good to be here. Thanks. Schoey's away in my hometown, the City of Churches. Actually called me on the way in. Was doing something with Dill Buckley and just needed a question answered on live on a podcast, so I've helped him out there. But no, good to be here. Yeah, we've a big game, big round of football.
A huge round of footy. We'll get to that shortly. Let's touch on some of the big issues of the last 48 hours. Most notably, there's two. Let's begin with the one close to home. Tim Kelly has been dropped for Saturday's game against the Blues.
Yep.
Lots of Eagle supporters have been calling for this. What's your read on this, and are you comfortable that he's been, I guess, singled out?
I am comfortable that he's been singled out. I think the McWalter had to make a call at some point. This is a senior player. This is a guy who has struggled with form is not the right way to put it. Because he's still been okay. People have, I've heard he's been rubbish. He's been useless. He's had a bad couple of years. He won a John Worsfold medal 25 games ago. So 2 years ago, he was the best and fairest player. I think he came 10th last year, dropped below his standard. This year, he's had 4 games. One of them was very good against Brisbane, where he was almost the best player. And then from there, he's had 3 that have been average. And he's just fallen out of love with it, and is clear as day to see that he just doesn't really like football at the moment. So I'm happy with the decision to drop him. I'm not happy with the narrative around he's been useless for a long time, because he hasn't been. But it's a statement to the senior players at the footy club that, you know, it doesn't matter who you are, your performance isn't going to warrant. It doesn't matter if you're a best and fairest winner, if you're the captain, if it doesn't really matter. If you're not playing well, we're going to drop you. So I'm happy with the statement that Minnie's made. You know, how long the stint in the waffle will be is up, we'll see. But yeah, I think it puts a real message there to the playing group that we're not tolerating these performances.
So you mentioned on radio with me last night and today that you don't think he's sort of invested. That
yes.
So you're just coming from the outside. There's no...
Well, he came out and said, I've fallen out of love with the game.
Yeah, but that might have been in the context of maybe that's in relation to how the Eagles have been playing. I mean, yes. Josh Rotham, I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago, and he gave me a similar quote saying, I'm falling back in love with it. Isn't that linked to success and winning?
Course, absolutely it is. It's TK won more games at Geelong in his first 2 years than he has since moving back to West Coast. And it's hard to, loving the game is difficult when you're just losing. And losing badly. So he's had more 100-point losses than he can count on both hands. They've been belted from pillar to post since he got back to West Coast, and it makes it really hard to continually get up and love what you're doing. And it's but people who say, he gets paid a lot of money, you get this, that, and the other. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it's his job, and people hate their job when it's not going well. If you love what you do, you don't work. That's the quote. But if you hate what you do, life is tough, regardless of how much money you're making. And he is in a position where he's just clearly not happy with where he's at, where the football club's at, and it is absolutely affecting his on-field performance.
Now, I do a lot of my own research for this Shelter FootyCast.
Obviously.
Going to give you a couple of numbers here. Why is everyone laughing? Oh, you probably should laugh. This is just a little snippet from the West Coast totals this year. Third for disposals, second for contested possessions, third for score involvements, first for goal assists, fourth for tackles. Now, that took me a lot of time because I just looked at it on the back pocket on their X feed, so I do have to attribute that.
Yeah.
But if that's all true, his numbers, at least the numbers game, suggests he's surely not the worst out there.
No, he's certainly not the worst out there, but you're comparing him with guys like Tom Gross, who's played his first game, or, Jack Rawlinson, who hasn't actually played this year. You're comparing him with young guys. So, yes, his numbers are going to stack up better than a lot of guys playing, 10 games 1 through 20, but you expect him to be, far better than what he has been. The contested possession stuff and all that, he's around the football, so he's always going to be involved in that sort of stuff. It's hard, half the team can't be involved in scoring involvements because they're defenders, so he's going to be involved a lot more in scoring. So, look, the numbers don't stack up badly, and he's certainly not been the worst player out there, but you have to make a call as a coach to say at some point we're going to drop an experienced and senior player to, one, make a statement, and two, because you have to play young kids. You've got it. There's no point dropping a young, a 10 gamer who is trying, unless it's clear that he's not up to the standard and needs a bit more time in the waffle. But it's just hard to know that because they're just getting belted every week. So you can drop a guy like Tim Kelly and say, this is the statement that we're making. We're going to give you a bit of time in the waffle, knowing that you'll be able to come back into the side, but also knowing the impact and the ripple effect that might have on the other players to pick their games up a little bit.
Last one on Tim Kelly. You mentioned the waffle. How many games does he play back?
I think he plays 2. I reckon he'll go 1 or 2. They're away this week. They come back. I think he'll play Saturday night. And then I reckon he'll play, Friday night. And I think he'll play another one next week.
When does East Perth play the Eagles?
Hopefully not in 2 weeks. No, we play them in 5 or 6 weeks.
Fair enough. Okay. From Tim Kelly, the other big story that's really bumping around, more so on the East Coast, but it does affect, I guess, selection for a game against the Dockers, is Noah Balta. He's pleaded guilty to assault. This is a fascinating one because the AFL has basically said to the Richmond Footy Club, this is your call. He's had a 4-week suspension from the club. He's eligible to play on the weekend against the Dockers. Where do you sit on a bloke like him who he could be, I'm saying incarcerated, but he's certainly going to be given a penalty by the courts, you'd suspect, in the next 10 days or in 10 days from now?
Yeah, I can't see a world where him playing is a good thing. If the situation was there was no footage, it was an alleged assault and he was pleading not guilty and going to court to fight that charge, then I think it's, okay, our court system is innocent until proven guilty, you can play. There's video footage of him knocking the business out of a bloke out the front of a pizza shop. He's pleaded guilty to it and he's going to face judgment. You can't then just say, oh, well, okay, I'm going to go and play. I think if Richmond are doing that, it's terrible. I think it's a disgraceful look if they go and do that and let a guy who is, it's not condoning it, but it sort of is. You're sort of saying this is fine. We care more about winning a game of football than having, Noah Balta out there who is, potentially in 2 weeks going to face jail time for belting the shit out of a bloke.
And just quickly, I know you shouldn't put this into the equation, but if the Tigers of 2017, 18 or whatever if they're up the top of the table, they're looking for that on-field pop, they're not winning too many matches this year. It doesn't. Yeah, the football side of it to me is curious, given that there's that pending, and what does it say? Not so much to your teammates and the players, but also the community.
That's the issue for me. It's not what it says to the players and the club. It's what it says. It's what the message that the club then inadvertently is okay with. Because if the saying is the standard you walk past is the standard you accept, and if you can let this guy walk back in and play football for your football club, knowing that he's done that, footage of it, he's pleaded guilty, he's going to face trial. If you can let him play knowing that that's going on, you're inadvertently condoning those actions, and I think it's just ridiculous.
This is the Shelter FootyCast. It's Skeet and Hammer on a Thursday morning. Right, let's get into some footy news, notably the round coming up, and we've got to, of course, embrace the new sponsor that's jumped on Shelter. If you're a small business owner, which you are not.
I'm not a small business owner.
But or even looking at taking your side hustle to the next level, that's a possibility for you
Potentially.
And myself. Contact Aspect Accountants this end of the financial year for a free initial consultation on all things accounting and tax. Info at aspect.aa.com.au. Welcome to Aspect Accountants for the rest of the season and beyond, we hope. Let's jump into the first game. We may as well stick with the WA clubs. And Saturday, first up, Carlton Eagles. Both teams are flying.
Yeah, so this is a grand final. It's good that we get. So what is it? It's like the start of April. It's good that we get a grand final this time of the year. It's exciting. So there's plenty of buzz around the place. It is both these teams' grand final. They're going to do nothing for the rest of the year. Both teams are rubbish, and it really is. I think Carlton have got more of a chance of winning more games in the back end because if they can sort of get fit and they can sort of figure things out, they've got cattle to win games. But this could be West Coast's only chance to win a game this year.
No, come on. Hammer.
It could be. It could be.
They could be 0-23.
I think they could be 0-23. They're playing, they're not going to, they've got no chance without Gov, Yowie and Jake for however long that is. But this is their best chance to win a game. And it's, they're coming up against the reason I say this is their best chance, you look at you think, they might beat Richmond, they might beat North Melbourne. Those teams are quick and young and exciting. And yes, they struggle with skills and all the rest of it, but they've got some flair and some run. Whereas Carlton are old, slow, and, they match up really well. Both teams are slow and average at the moment. It's going to be a real, like a shuffleboard, walking footy sort of situation.
Let me throw a couple of aspect accounting stats to you. The Blues are just the sixth team ever to lead at halftime but lose 4 consecutive games.
Has anyone ever done it 5 times?
Well, that's a good question. But Louis, who gives us our previews through Champion Data, he might be able to confirm or deny that. But their second halves have been terrible. Conversely,
Vossi still thinks they're actually going okay in the second half.
Yeah, look, I don't think they've. I know you've just potted the crap out of them. I don't think they're playing that badly. I don't think they honestly don't. Their second half's not great. They've been beaten by Collingwood by 3 goals, Hawthorn by 20 points. I know they look. Oh, you're looking at me like I'm talking Spanish here.
How are they not playing?
No, I know they're not. I just don't think there is. You're talking about the Eagles and Carlton on the same level. I think with Harry Mackay.
No, I said Carlton are better than West Coast, no question. But Carlton are still rubbish.
Yeah, I'm trying to paint a positive picture for Blue supporters. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, and for the Eagles, and we know there was a period in the second quarter against the Giants where they didn't touch the ball for about 5 minutes and 11 disposals, 3 or 4 goals. Well, West Coast has conceded 6 goals in a row, 4 times this season, the most in the AFL. Once a team gets a sniff and on a run, the Eagles are powerless.
That is true. And I do say both teams are rubbish. West Coast are going in as heavy underdogs, which is warranted. Like Carlton are and should beat them. But I just think Carlton are at a point in their lives where they've got, they've had this expectation. It hasn't worked. It's crumbling around them. I don't think guys are buying into what's happening, and it's a lose. They won't know that. It's easy to say they won't know the game's over until it's over, but there is going to be no stage at this game unless they're 100 points up at three-quarter time that they'll be comfortable, which is why I think West Coast are going to win, because even if they're up by 10 points, 20 points, 30 points, the psychology of football at the moment is they're just going to lose. They're just going to get run over in the back end. And once that bleeds through, it's contagious, and you make mistakes and you give up and you go insular. And I think West Coast will be gearing themselves up to win this game of football. In a grand final. I'm tipping West Coast.
You're tipping the Eagles.
Tipping the Eagles.
You just told me they could be 0-46.
Yeah, I did say that, but I also said Carlton the rubbish too. So Carlton will lose this.
I think Carlton win this game and win it pretty comfortably in the end against an Eagles side. Good news is Jake Waterman, spoke to him this week. He looks like he'll come back and play. Back. Oscar Allen in brief, play forward.
Yes, has to, I think.
And Sandy Brock, lots of focus on him against Jesse. He was up against the kid with the finger in all the dikes. But he might surely Harry Edwards gets a look this week?
You'd think so. You'd have to come back and play him on Charlie.
Yeah, I'm tipping the Blues in that one. Before we get to the Dockers and the Tigers, did you know it's time to drink something, Red Hammer? Shelter Brewing's fan favourite red ale is making its comeback into cans for autumn and winter this Friday. Oh. And it's brought some friends along this year. There's a limited edition Red Rye IPA, cold weather luxury in a can. I can just imagine Schoey and the boys over there just knocking a few over in Adelaide as we speak. Available on tap at Shelter and in can at limited bottle shops online and the brewery from Friday. And for those that really love a decadent drop, that's a good word. There's a keg-only whiskey red ale release available only at Shelter. This triple red drop kicks off with a brewer's shout at Shelter's this Friday, so tomorrow from 4:30. Wow. So if you're down south...
I imagine that's probably got a bit of a kick to it.
It's got a bit of a bounce. You know where you need to be this Friday. Grab the seasonal Shelter Red range at the brewery and online from it this Friday. The code for the Shelter FootyCast, by the way, gives you 10% off beers right now, shelterbrewing.com.au or shelterfootycast.com.au. Now, given I'm just new to this hosting role for a bit, we've touched on the Eagles and the Blues. We'll go to the other game between Fremantle and Richmond. Then we'll jump into some of the other big moments of the round coming up in Gather Round. But let's look at Sunday's game. Okay. Again, we talk about the reverse blockbuster between the Blues and the Eagles. Let's be honest, who gives
not a single person
about the Dockers fans.
Dockers fans do.
Tigers fans they might go to the Barossa Valley and enjoy it.
Yeah, the things that'll interest me in this game: how much Freo are going to win by, and does Noah Balta play or not? That's all I care. I'll know the Noah Balta one before the game because he'll either be picked or he won't be, and then I go from there. The question: imagine if Noah Balta does get picked, does he just go out and fight everyone, knowing full well that he might go to jail anyway? Does he cop a 30-week AFL suspension and just beat the piss out of everyone on the field knowing that he's going to jail?
Well, I can't imagine that to be in his mindset at the moment, Sam. I know, look, you're thinking outside the square. That's what we love about you. But
Imagine that, righto, boys. It's half time. Geez, the Dockers are up by 80 points. What do we do here, Noah? Actually, I've got a great idea. I'm locked up anyway.
I'll replicate the 204 grand final Lynchy in the goals.
Who's playing well? Strong's had 30. Sweet. No worries. Don't worry about him. Brayshaw's had 28. Yep, sweet. He'll go down again. Who else have we got? Darcy's come back for his first game. Not anymore.
No. Well, they were pretty good last week.
Well, they could have 14 on the bench.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You're thinking worst case scenario. I'm not sure.
I am. No, I don't think it'll happen.
But from a Fremantle perspective, we are interested in what they bring to the selection table this week.
Yes.
Hayden Young, 3 goals, 19 disposals.
Hayden Young will play.
Yeah, I think he's a bit like Juddy, one and done in the waffle.
Correct. He's good.
When he's right to go, he's there.
He'll play.
Sean Darcy is interesting because given he's played so little footy, I know Jackson's out injured. You've got Reedy waiting the wings. Do you reckon they might prefer, if Darcy doesn't play, to go with that Voss pinch hitting with Tracy or using sort of fill-ins as ruck alternatives?
I would play Liam Reedy this week. I think that the fact that Sean Darcy has played 60 minutes of football in however many months, he is with Jackson out for a bit of a whack. You've got as important a player as you've got coming back in, and you don't want to go him early. So I think they will play him for another 70, 80 minutes in the waffle this week, knowing that you don't take any opposition lightly, but if you are going to, Richmond and West Coast are the two. And so this week you can just be a bit more cautious. Nate Curvis is a very good ruck, but Liam Reedy is just a big lump of a man who will go out there and he will compete. And then you pinch hit with your Voss and your Tracy and the rest of it. But yeah, I think they should play Reedy this week, give Darcy another week in the waffle, and then let him go from there.
All signs against the Bulldogs you think were positive, particularly the last quarter with the character they showed. So Is it a pretty good launching pad? I know it's only one win. I know the Bulldogs, they had an injury themselves, but it just feels like their season's turned a fraction.
Yeah, it does. They've got Richmond this week, into Melbourne, into Adelaide. So they've got 3 massive games coming up. I think they get a really good look at their culture and the way that they want to present themselves in the next 3 weeks, because you should win the next 2. Richmond aren't going well, Melbourne aren't going well, and if that's the case, you're 4-2 coming into as the informed team almost in the competition. So I think you expect them to win this week. You expect them to win pretty comfortably. The way that they were able to not get beaten in the last quarter was massive, I think, for them last week, because of all the talk of their last quarters. They've been bad, they've fallen out, they've faded, especially in the back end of last year. To hold that lead and then extend it late was really promising signs. But I think the more important thing from last week is you got the signs from the right guys that you needed. Bolton played really well. He started to go. Murphy Reid, again, has shown a little bit of class that he didn't have. Tracy was taking marks and kicking goals. And I think Andrew and Caleb were able to work in a way that they haven't done so far this year together as a duo. And then you add Hayden Young back into that mix, obviously, and that'll go from strength to strength. But I think they were able to see highlights from the right people at the right times to show that they're on the right trajectory. And so, yeah, I think the next 2 weeks, just hurry up and bank them and win, and then take them on to Adelaide.
Bear in mind what happened in Adelaide last year. It just about broke them. Beaten by Carlton at the death.
Yep,
beaten by Port Adelaide at the death.
2 poor umpiring decisions, I think. The Carlton one was. And then Port Adelaide, they stole it late. And
they conceded a late goal. I think it would have been Horn Francis pushed forward.
Yeah, and kicked that snap on Brown and Walker. Yeah. Yes. I remember that.
So that's going to stick in their memory for a bit. So you're tipping by margin?
Yeah, by margin. By probably 50 points.
Let the Pinot flow in the Barossa Valley. Correct. For Docker supporters who are going, have you been to the Barossa Valley?
Haven't, but apparently it's just sensational. I'd love to go there.
It looks great. I mean, I've been there, but for a footy match, how good a weekend?
Well, because especially this one, because it's just quickly, boys. We'll roll out and knock this one over, and then we'll head out the back door and head to the Barossa. It'd be beautiful out there.
Hamish Brayshaw, Mark Redding, Shelter FootyCast. Now, given, of course, my technological skills aren't great, I've missed some of the moments of the rounds, which we should have touched on, but most of them have been ticked off on. But when it comes to gather round, I want to get a couple of your thoughts on it.
Sure.
Jack Higgins.
Yep, that was crazy. What a thing to say.
Adelaide's got a few bogans over there. Well, let's be honest. There's a bit of a bogan culture. Imagine saying that and then wanting to walk around the Hindley Street for the next 6 days.
I just wouldn't. Well, he said he's He's forced his hand. He has to be locked up.
He's in quarantine.
Yeah, and everyone's sort of saying, "Oh, maybe he's playing 4D chess and he wants to get free stuff and get trips around." No, he doesn't. He's what you see is what you get. He's as plain as anything, old Jack Higgins, and what he says, what goes through his mind comes straight out of his mouth, and that is what he thinks. So he will be sitting at home playing Call of Duty, doing nothing else. But what a thing to say.
Just, you didn't read the room. Be no good as a politician during federal election campaign.
I remember, so Jack, he won, sidetrack, he won the Morris Medal, which is the TAC Cup, or the old, and now the Coates Talent League. It's the under-18s in Victoria, best and fairest for the league. He won that in his 18th year, and I remember his speech. He just ran through the whole thing. He was going all over the place. The first thing he said was, I didn't expect to win tonight. I have no idea, and blah, 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 blah. Fumbled his way through all the questions, and then the guy who was interviewing him said, "Mate, well, I'll pass it over to you now if you want to say anything." Remember what he said at the start. I had no idea that I was going to win this. Then pulls a speech out of his pocket and says, I just had this prepared just in case I won. And then the guy was like, well, hang on a minute, mate. Like, what are you doing anyway? He's a funny man, but not the best thing to say first week in Adelaide.
Yeah, didn't read the room at all. Well, now we love shelter. It is very good. Now, can we get a Darcy Fogarty type replica of a tattoo on one of our AFL players? This is an interesting one. So it's not a permanent tattoo.
No, it's like a henna style thing that'll last there for a couple of weeks, I think.
So it's promoting West End, is it?
Correct. No, Coopers. Yeah.
Okay, so
spit that out of my mouth. It's disgusting.
I reckon it's very average compared to shelter.
Obviously. Yeah.
That being said, it's must be a good coin for him.
Yeah, I think he's making 20 or 30 grand from it.
It's a bit like when Gary Hocking
by default changed to Whisters. Hocking, yeah.
Not sure that earned him, but Darcy Fogarty, big man tonight. We'll touch on his performance shortly. And I guess the other issue, which I've been told reliably that this hasn't happened, and we go back to the Oscar Allen issue, but that Don Pike and the board of the West Coast Eagles, particularly the board, were keen to have him step down as captain last week. I don't know what your mail is. Yep. The Eagles very strong that wasn't the case. Who do you believe?
I actually don't know. I've heard that it has happened. I've heard that it hasn't happened. I would say that it hasn't happened just on the basis that he's still the captain. If the CEO and the board wanted you to step down as the captain, they're the ones that the players vote, but the board has to ratify that decision. So in my opinion, if the board and the CEO wanted the captaincy taken off him, it would have happened. Yeah. So that's why I don't think it's happened.
No, fair shout. Now, before we get into the rest of our matches, I hope you've been given a heads up on this. Been asked to give you...
Certainly haven't.
the top 3 things you would change to improve the AFL. Now, you can have a think about that as we...
Yep, don't need to, really.
Okay, well, let's jump straight into them. I know that there's... you've always got something pretty strong to say.
Yeah, the tribunal system needs complete overhaul.
I know you compared it to an ice cream last night.
Yep, an ice cream with dog poo in it. So I would say that needs a complete overhaul in the way of outcome over action needs to be completely reversed. You need to punish the action. I think it needs to be very much just copy our justice system. Go through the due diligence or whatever the hell it is and get it right. Judge an action, leave the outcome out of it. Judge an action if he's done it with intent, if it's done on purpose, if it's something that can be avoided, if it's something that can't. Don't just say, oh, well, this guy got concussed, so he's out for 3 weeks. Concussion's massive. Yes, you got to protect the head. But for the integrity of the game, that needs to be a complete overhaul and that needs to be sorted very, very quickly. That's the first thing I would change. The second thing I would change is I would be putting a lot more money and a lot more resources into getting umpires up to standard because they're not. This year especially, I think not since the expansion, but since it's over the last however many years, I feel like the umpiring has just gotten worse and worse. And I don't think they're full-time yet. I think there's a lot of guys and a lot of girls out there that are trying to be umpires, and I'm imagining that the youth umpiring is good, but the pathway hasn't been invested in enough, and the umpires at AFL level are making key critical decisions in wrong times more frequently than not. I think it's just becoming... You're getting more and more glaringly obvious examples of umpires making the wrong decision, being in the wrong spot, saying the wrong thing, trying to enforce themselves when they shouldn't do, letting a call go when they shouldn't do. And it's impacting games. When it doesn't impact games, it doesn't impact games. Who cares? But when it's Isaac Rankin or when it's, the Freo games at Gather Round last year, in key big moments, you're making wrong calls consistently. I think that needs an overhaul, and I think that needs to be invested in a lot more because the more money and the more time you invest in that, the better off they will be. What other things would I change? I'd get rid of opening round. It sucks. Play everyone. I'm happy to go to Brisbane, happy to go to Queensland, happy to go to New South Wales, but just play a gather round there. Play all 18 teams, 9 rounds that first week.
So an opening round like a gather round?
Yes, I would just call it round 1.
And play all.
And I would play every team.
I'm sort of with you on that. I think
it opening round if you still want the allure of we're going away, but it's a gather round. A gather round is all in Adelaide, so it would be different, but play 9 games in Queensland and New South Wales.
Over that first
weekend. Play the big heavy hitters at, the Gabba, Metricon and the SCG. You can play games out at Cairns. You can play games at, Bundaberg. You can play games wherever the local footy, Southport Oval in New South Wales. You can play them all over the place. But hit the big 3 stadiums. You could play Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, those big ones, and then you could just filter around there. It'd be brilliant.
I don't mind it. It's obviously, you got to work out the venues, etc., but it's one to consider. So Hammer with his 3 big hits, I don't mind that last thought because providing the venues are there, if they're looking to make sure the northern markets are catered for, then and have that weekend really zoning in on them, then perhaps that's the way to go. 3 big changes that Hammer wants as part of AFL reintegration into normal footy mindset. This is the Shelter FootyCast. Okay, let's jump into the rest of the matches as we roll through tonight. Adelaide Oval, Adelaide and Geelong. Both sides go in reasonable touch. The Crows beaten, unluckily, at the death. Jack Henry is out for the Cats. Mark Blixavs returns. Isaac Rankin has got a caught calf, so we'll wait and see whether he's a late out.
I think he'll play. Has
to,
doesn't he?
Big matchup here. Sam De Koning was terrific against Melbourne last week. Really found some touch. And Riley Thilthorpe, who I think Schoey struggles to get out the Thilthorpe.
Is it Thilthorpe? Philthorpe? Who cares? The thriller.
He's got the big beard and he's a big unit.
He is a massive, massive man. So this is going to be a huge game.
I'm
game. Very excited to watch this one. I think Adelaide are as good a team as there is in the comp at the moment. They've got the best scoring power going forward. They kicked 160 points a couple of weeks ago. That just doesn't happen anymore. But Geelong are seasoned veterans, been there, done that. Adelaide, they're new on the scene, fresh on the scene to being good. Geelong have always been good. So this is going to be a really good game, a good matchup stylistically. I think Geelong over there, if it had been at GMHBA, I'm backing Geelong. But the fact that it's at Adelaide, it's the opening for Gather Round, I think they're just going to roll with a bit of momentum that they've got. And I just don't see Geelong being able to stop the scoring.
They might play a bit angry as well. Some stats for aspect accountants. Geelong, by the way, you're quite right. It's won 7 its last 8 matches against the Crows. Average winning margin of 24 points. And last week, by the way, Tommy Atkins became the first player in AFL history to have 10 tackles in each of the first 4 rounds of the season. He has 48 tackles, 14 clear of the next best this season. I mean, we've seen teams tackle less than 48 in a game.
Yeah, I had less than 48 in a year, I reckon, last year. That's incredible. But yeah, look, they do have a good run against them. But as I said, it's because Geelong have always been good. Adelaide are new on the scene to being good. I just think they're going to roll. I think they're going to roll with this momentum. The fanfare of Gather Round is going to help them shift into another gear. But yeah, I just think look at their midfield. Saligo has just taken another step. Rankin is just an out-and-out star, and I think he will play. And then obviously Jordan Dawson is just a weapon. Crouch and Laird find the footy non-stop. But then they're guys who didn't stand up, but they're guys that took another step from last year. Ben Keys is now he's just got a bit of animal in him. Dan Curtin has really made a mark in Adelaide, and I think he's found his feet in the AFL landscape. And I just think they're going to be, too strong around the ground.
Isn't it great? I love how you've turned from pre-season.
I hated them. I thought they were rubbish.
Yeah, well, I think you probably had a few people in your corner. But look, everyone's entitled to say they were wrong, and you've done that.
I've done that, yep.
I just want Schoey to also jump on that train as well at some stage. So we're both picking the Crows in what should be a terrific start to Gather Round. Tomorrow night, it's Collingwood and Sydney at the Adelaide Oval. Really big game. I think this is one of the toughest to call. Houston is out with suspension, and we've all heard about the length of suspension, whether it was too light, etc.
Yep.
Lockie Schultz with their hammy, Jordan Ngoe with the Achilles. And the Swans, look, they took care of North Melbourne last week, but after a bit of a shaky start, Coxie's got them rolling.
He has, and I've actually changed my initial tip here. So I originally went with Collingwood. I thought that they were flying. I thought the boys through the middle were working well. I still think Nick Dacos is the best player in the competition. But James Jordan is a very good run with player, so he'll get that attention on Friday night. But I've come around on the Swans. I think they struggled the first couple of weeks, and
Hawthorn are pretty good. Brisbane are running
Hawthorn
premiers.
are pretty good. Brisbane are running premiers, and Freo pushed them, and Freo I think are still a good team. But you can't. They have their list hasn't changed too much, and for the last 3 or 4 years they've been the best team without winning a grand final. Yep. And I don't think that can be easily forgotten, and I think they've clicked into gear. And sometimes it does take an easy beat, like North Melbourne, to get you going. And I think they're much better for it. I think a full list Collingwood test them, and I would have tipped Collingwood at the start of the week if these other guys hadn't been injured. But yeah, I'm backing the Swans now, and I think they're just going to be across the ground a little bit too classy and a bit too polished.
There's some numbers for Aspect Accountants. Collingwood has won its last 9 matches at the Adelaide Oval, obviously playing against either Port or the Crows mostly, going back to 2018. And just a quick line on Riley Bice, his disposal efficiency, 86.5, which is a number that I never even got in school, let alone kicking efficiency.
I got him in my Supercoach 2 weeks ago, and what a change that's been.
He's second highest in the AFL. He's a great story, and he's been able to, turn a few heads. So you're tipping Sydney.
I'm tipping the Swans, yeah, I am.
Sydney to win. I'm tipping Collingwood, but by tomorrow night, depending
you could change.
If I've had a couple of shoulders in the afternoon.
You could change your tune.
I could change my tune. We're going from a couple of blockbusters, and we're starting to head down the list of order of merit. We're going from the Masters to the Bunbury Open as we roll down.
This is the annoying thing about Gather Round. Not every game can be a winner.
North Melbourne Gold Coast at Barossa Park. I presume that's in the Barossa Valley.
That is, yep.
North Melbourne, terrible last week. The Suns with a chance to start 4-0. George Wardlaw, a hamstring, unfortunately for him. Everything going well for the Gold Coast Suns, including winning a tight match. Just some numbers for Aspect Accountants there. They've won, the Suns, it is, their last 4 matches on the road. That's extraordinary given how poor they've been. I think we've put in the Eagles. They beat Melbourne. And
Essendon?
Then maybe Essendon late last year. So, that probably adds up. Good numbers there. And Gold Coast has won 6 of its last 9 against North by an average winning margin of 60. The Kangaroos have scored 22 points per game from centre bounce clearances, led by the big man Cherry, ranked number 1 in the AFL. So I'm expecting you're still pretty much thinking the Gold Coast Suns on the right track?
Yeah, I am. And it hurts me. As much as I love the Boners, I just think they're coming up against a very classy outfit that they don't have the cattle to run with. The ruck battle is going to be interesting because Witsy is a mountain of a man. And the two of them, that'll be really, really nice to see. I think that's a good go. But I think what you can expect from North Melbourne here is a bit more competitive. They'll be a bit more competitive than last week. But I think it's going to be good for them in the long run to have had these last 3 games because these young guys, Finn O'Sullivan, McKercher, Sheasel, these guys are all very good players. But to come up against, in a 3-week stretch, Adelaide, Sydney, and then the Gold Coast Suns, you get to watch the key stars of every game. You get to follow them around for a McKercher or for an O'Sullivan on the wing or for a Bailey Scott on the other. You get to see the premier players in the comp playing really well. And it's hard because you're losing every week and it's difficult, but when you get the opportunity to play on a good player like what they're going to this week, like they'll learn invaluable stuff from Noah Anderson. The watching him, right? They'll learn from Matt Rowell on the fly, and then to be able to make adjustments as you're going along in game. That yes, I don't think they're going to win, but I think they'll get some lessons out of this game, and hopefully they're a lot more competitive than last week. But Gold Coast will just be too strong.
Yep, and Matt Rowell I think be close to leading the Brownlow or thereabouts at this stage. Both tipping the Suns in that one.
Yep.
We go to a Saturday twilight game. The Dogs, Western Bulldogs, and Brisbane at the Norwood Oval. Brisbane, of course, not too rapt about missing out on a game at the Adelaide Oval for the 3rd consecutive year. But why would you give up Carlton and the West Coast Eagles at the premier venue for that?
Exactly. I don't get that. I just don't understand it.
Rory Lobb, by the way, he has a new hairdo for Gather Round. The lobster is gone. He's got woof woof imprinted on his head. So he just clearly has no issue in just attracting a crowd and some comments across the fence. So well done to him. And the lobster's just going from strength to strength when it comes to dues. And the big question, Sam Darcy. Is it Harris Andrews or Jack Payne who gets him? I'll let you ponder that. Some stats for Aspect Accountants. These teams played some pretty close games. The Bulldogs winning 6 of their last 10 against the Lions by an average of 13 points. The Lions have generated just 2 points from centre bounce clearances over the last 3 rounds. The fewest in the AFL, and you think of their midfield, that seems a very interesting number thanks to Aspect Accountants. Should be a good game, this one.
Should be a great game, and I've just had a look at the odds. It's not overly one-sided. $1.50, $2.50 is pretty much where you're looking at. And I don't know, Brisbane are just, but they're 4-0. And they're the reigning premiers. So it's really hard to say that they're not playing well. But on the same token, I think the Bulldogs have been so close to winning. You know, they lost very narrowly to Fremantle in the game that they probably should have won.
All the numbers favoured them, inside 50s, etc.
And I think they're pretty close to being there, and they've got some cattle that they're missing, and that's not an issue because they'll come back. But you mentioned Sam Darcy, and there hasn't been a fullback in the comp that has been able to do anything about it. And this week he's coming up against the best fullback in the comp. And I think if Harris Andrews doesn't go, Harris Andrews will go to him. I think there's no question about it. He's the captain of the footy club. He's the best fullback in the comp. He's your reigning Jack Buckley medalist. There's no question he goes to him. And I think if he doesn't, you're resigning to the fact that this guy's going to win regardless. So let Harris do other things, which I don't think he'll do. They're a proud club. He's a proud man. He'll go to him. The midfield battle's exciting. I don't think. I think Lachie Neale is obviously a star, and the Ashcroft boys are running around in there. But the Bulldogs have got, Matt Kennedy has injected something. Liberatore is always going to win clearances, and he's a star. And then Ed Richards is running through there. They've got James Harms is playing really good footy.
They're just missing the Bonce and Treloar. If they were playing,
you'd almost be leaning the Bulldogs.
And look, I still think they're a chance to win this. To be totally honest, I think you're right. Brisbane are just ticking along, doing enough, and they've shown to be the comeback kings apart from last week against Richmond. So, I give the Bullies a bit of a chance from what I saw. You're right. If Darcy fires, and they're right in the conversation.
Yeah, I think that's where it lies. If Darcy can kick, a bag, 5 or 6, because he kicked 5 and dominated. He was the best player on the ground last week, with the exception of maybe Sarong, and kept him in the game. Yeah. So if you can quash him, which is easier said than done, then you'll win, and it'll be pretty easy. I think they'll win by a bit. But if he'll keep them in the game if they can't get a hold of him. I'm tipping Brisbane, but I think the Bulldogs will be competitive.
Yeah, Lions for both of us here. Melbourne and Essendon at the Adelaide Oval on Saturday night. Jake Lever's set for ankle surgery, out for 8 weeks. Melbourne's really, they've just fallen off a cliff in so many ways, and they were conceded 160-plus marks against Geelong last week. So the Bombers are fresh off the bye. Jai Caldwell, the hamstring, and poor old Tommy Edwards out for the rest of the season with the ACL. Some aspect accounting numbers. Melbourne has won 9 of its last 12 games in Adelaide with an average winning margin of 30 points.
Really?
A bit skewed because of who they've played, but that's still a pretty interesting stat. And Zach Merritt, averaging 32 touches and 2 goals this season. Clearly, some of the Ds have to put some time into.
Yeah, Melbourne are rubbish. Melbourne are so bad, and I just don't know where it's come from. No Brayshaw, no Melbourne. As soon as he left that club...
No, it is. No, I know.
As soon as he left that club, they've just been downhill.
Yeah.
And it's been a stark difference between the 2021 Premiership Demons versus now, with a not too dissimilar list. I think their key players are all still there, with the exception of maybe Angus.
I think they're there in body, but
not in spirit. Yeah, not in spirit at all. And I just think it's just been disheartening to see the way that they've gone down. And I actually think Essendon are a reasonably good side. I think they've got a lot of young talent. I think their defence needs shoring up. Ben Mackay has obviously been struggling, but they get a really good chance to come off this bye because Melbourne's forward line is non-existent. So, if your back line's struggling, why not come up against 6 witches hats inside forward 50 of the Demons? So that'll be really good for them to get that on board. I think their youth in the middle of the ground is explosive. Durham, Dersma, these sort of guys are blowing apart games. And then obviously Zach Merritt I think he's the best captain in the comp at the moment. He's leading his team in every possible way. On field, he is such a role model, and he's just playing in a spirit and with the determination that is just unmatched, I think. Off field, I'm sure he's a very good guy, but his on-field leadership it just doesn't stop. And he's such a good player. So I think he'll lead them to victory again. And I think it's just a matter of the midfield and the forward line battle for Adelaide. Not for Adelaide, for Essendon, being a bit too good for an undermanned Melbourne in the back line, and then Melbourne's forward line's non-existent.
Can't kick a score, Melbourne, and I can't tip them on that basis. I
Yep.
haven't thought so all year, and I mean, they just aren't able to. Bally Fritsch really struggling. Cozzy, where does he play? Oh, yeah, I just can't, if Essendon kicks 12 goals or more, I think they win pretty comfortably, just although their defence probably is a bit leaky as well. Both tipping the Bombers, Saints and the Giants. Norwood on Sunday, Stephen Cornelio and Brent Daniels, both the Tests. Saints have won 3 in a row. Which is a terrific effort, really, considering they're still getting players back.
Yep.
For Aspect Accountants, GWS are averaging 676 handballs metres gained this season, the most over a 4-game stretch by any team since 2012. The Orange Tsunami now, but I think Riley comes up with a lot of these little bits and pieces. That is a beauty.
That is. Who was the 2012 team that did it?
That's a very good question.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Who would it have been?
Yeah, was it the Geelong Hawthorn type era? Was it
Hawthorn? Nah, Richmond were the ones that really went the full
2012 that early?
Yeah, not that early. They were really bad then. It might have been Hawthorn, maybe a Sydney.
Possibly.
Yeah, I don't know. That's it is an interesting stat, and you can see the way they do it. They're doing it through weight of running, and you watched on the weekend, and West Coast weren't a great example, but their mids just run in numbers and they run in waves, and what that does is it allows a guy like Tom Green to break a tackle or get drawn 2-1 and then release the handball over the top. So that's how you get that. And then it's all of a sudden one goes, the other player has to press. Next goes, the other player has to press. And you just get this overlap effect, flow-on effect, and it ends up, with goals in the goal square, and it ends up with overlap handballs and forward, metres gained by hand. And they are sizzling at the moment, the GWS Giants. They are absolutely sizzling, but they're coming up against a side in St Kilda that have just found a way to score. You talk about Melbourne and the fact that they've got no forward line. At the moment, Saints have no forward line, but they're scoring. They're finding ways to kick goals, and I think Jack Higgins is going to get the hell booed out of him. But it's he's kicking three. He's kicking threes. Wanganeen Miller is kicking goals. Darcy Wilson is kicking goals. Mason Wood is kicking goals. Like, they're all these unassuming guys that are just popping up and kicking too. And they're good. I think GWS are going to win, but this game is, if you had have asked me 3 weeks ago, I would have said, looking through the gather round tips, Giants will win this by 100. But this is now going to be an interesting game that I'm actually excited to watch.
Yeah, and I think Ross Lyon's too good a coach for them to get beaten consistently by a big margin. He knows how to shut down a game, and I think he'll try and do the same against the Giants. I agree with you. The class factors is clear. Class will prevail. Giants to win, but the Saints, they might be the feel-good story of the season that we didn't see coming.
It wouldn't surprise... A win here from St Kilda wouldn't surprise me as much as I thought it would. I would not... I don't think they will, but if they can win this game, it won't surprise me because I can see how they would win it.
Would it surprise you if you saw Port Adelaide supporters give it the aeroplane at some stage on Sunday evening against Hawthorn? Do you think they're going to be grounded after the mighty Flying Hawks grinded their way to victory against Port? This is the matchup of the weekend. The AFL gave 20K to Ken Hinkley. They said, don't do that again, but guess what? We'll put you basically the standout last match of the gather round to attract all the attention. Let's just quickly touch on this. The Ken Hinkley incident we know about. Will Day, massive out with a foot. Warple with the ankle. Out for the power. Darcy Byrne-Jones suspended. Travis Spoke being managed. Day's the big out. That's massive, 3 months.
Yeah, that kills because he is such a weapon. I said before when we were talking, I'm just going to sidebar here, talking about Richmond and the Noah Balta comeback.
Yep.
Talking about the actions that they condone if they allow him to play. This has really pissed me off with what the AFL have done here. To fine Ken Hinkley 20 grand and say that action is, we can't have that. That's, it's disgraceful, disgusting, unbecoming of a coach. $20,000 fine, which is like a third of the annual salary of an average Australian. And you've said, just for doing the aeroplane, we're going to give you 20 grand. But we're going to make 15 million plus off one game, and we're going to promote the hell out of it. We're going to use that as our corner. Like, that's the pillar. That's the culminating of gather round. It's the biggest round for us all year besides the grand final. And we're going to fine you $20,000 and don't do it. But thanks for doing it because we're going to make a shitload of money off you.
And Fox and Seven, whoever's telecasting on the weekend.
Please show it as much as you can.
It's going to be everywhere. And it's great. You know what? I don't think Schoey and I blew it over this. He thought that it was unbecoming after the match. I said, you know what? It's a bit of theatre, a bit like Sheedy with the scarf going back all those years. It just... Anyway, the
hypocrisy of the AFL to say, don't do it, but we're going to abuse the shit out of it is... I hated it. Anyway, I hate what they've done with it, but I love the game. And what I'm really looking forward to is Hawthorn beating the pulp out of Port Adelaide and Jack Ginnivan kicking a goal in the second half, because he won't do it in the first half because they mean business. They are a genuine contender. He'll kick a goal in the second half. I'm really hoping it's last quarter.
When he knows the game's
done. And he is going to fly a plane from the forward pocket to the back pocket. He's going to run the whole length of the ground flying that goddamn thing.
I reckon that's probably the call of the weekend. At some stage, if Hawthorn are winning and he does something special, it's coming out of the back pocket.
It has to. And I think he will know to not do it in the tight game, but he is so good at football, and he's got the mental game down, I think, to an art, Jack Ginnivan, and I love watching him. I think he's such an exciting weapon that he will wait until the right moment, till the game is iced and done, and he will kick a goal, or someone will kick a goal, and the plane will take off. The plane will take off.
It will be. It'll be it's first-class travel back to Melbourne for the Hawks. Just quickly, Port have won both matches against Hawthorn last season by a combined margin of 4 points, so that shows you not much between them last year. But Hawthorn's won just 3 of 11 games at the Adelaide Oval since 2020, including being up by 40 points and getting rolled by Darcy Byrne-Jones late in that thriller. So this is interesting. Coming off a bye, the Hawks... that being said, they're the team that is impressing as much as anyone. It sounds like you're tipping the Hawks.
I'm definitely tipping the Hawks. I think they're the best team in the comp at the moment, and they will continue to win.
I agree. That's the last game of the gather round. This is Shelter FootyCast with Skeet and Hammer. Of course, Shelter Brewing Co. beer fresh from the Busselton foreshore. The couple of questions coming through to finish us off, Hammer. I haven't read them, just as Schoey hasn't read them, so hang out for this. Lockie Shearer says, just wanted to send a quick shout-out to Skeet. I got married on the weekend and slipped in one of Skeet's favourite sayings, fait accompli, during my vows.
Wow,
so while I should have been thinking about my wife and our future together, I was actually internally laughing and thinking about Skeet.
Shelter FootyCast.
Also demolished plenty of shelters. Well, good luck to you, Lockie, and your marriage. I've lasted 25 by drinking shelter during that period. Let's hope you get to do the same. El Capitan says, I'm an Eagles fan, and when your senior players don't turn up or lead by example, you don't stand a chance.
Correct.
Who are the players driving the standards? The silver lining is that we can't really judge the younger players with the current state of the club.
Correct.
Agree with most of that?
I agree with most of that. The question of who's driving the standards is a good one. I think they've got guys like Liam Baker and Jack Graham in to do just that. But it takes more than two to tango in an AFL environment. So they need to teach these young guys how to do it.
Matt on YouTube says, can I suggest that we will never stop having these issues with wrong umpiring calls in the final few minutes of games? It happens multiple times to multiple clubs. Is it time to bring in a captain's call, like they do in the NRL, to have these reviewed? It's been discussed this week in radio. I'm not sure it's got the traction. Hammer, have you got the appetite?
It's not. You can't do it. It's a different game. The games with captain calls that work are slow games with stoppages more frequently. This is such a free flowing game. You need better in the moment umpires.
Fair enough. Luke Phillips says, have the Eagles going their way? Have the Eagles going their own way in the waffle hampered their ability to develop young players, especially in a rebuild?
Yes.
You've said that. You've been strong on that for a while.
Yeah, it absolutely has. They've got you can't develop a young player losing by 100 points every week.
Fair shout. And Adam on YouTube suggests that Chad Warner was sick during the week. That's why, with the Swans well on top, he was subbed out. So there might have been some questions, but I think that was the only reason. This is the Shelter FootyCast, Skeet and Hammer. We've got a Patreon exclusive here. Is that part of the deal for our Shelter FootyCast? Either way,
Sounds
Shelter's...
like it. It sounds like it does.
Socials at Shelter FootyCast. Email us at footycast@backchatstudios.com.au. YouTube BackChat, Shelter FootyCast playlist. Our Patreon members, we love your work. I don't know what the hell they're involved with, but there's specials coming up left, right and centre. Hey, Hammer, that's you and I done.
Beautiful.
Riley and the team have put this rundown together. I just shifted things, not because I wanted to, because I didn't scroll down the laptop.
Does know how to work the scroll. He needs a mouse.
I'm a numpty like that. Hey, Hammer, good luck with the Royals this weekend. Always entertaining. You're very popular on radio last night on 6PR.
Thank you.
And may your wit and sharp, incisive footy knowledge continue. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you very much.
Enjoy.